Now, farmers across the ditch are set to be taxed into oblivion, some of them fear, under Jacinda Ardern's plan to cut methane emissions. They're going to tax is trying to put a price on burping and farting livestock, and it's supposed to drive measures to reduce these emissions. Can you believe it? Here's the New Zealand Prime Minister last year.
We are working very hard to actually reduce those emissions in real terms. We are the only country in the world that I know of that has made a commitment to how we will price emissions that are produced through our food production, and you're just not seeing that in other countries.
We shall see. Some estimates say 20% of sheep and beef farmers and maybe 5% of dairy farmers could be forced out of business under this tax by 2030. A little earlier, I spoke with Robin Grieve. He's the chairman of Farm New Zealand, and I started by asking him why on earth a government would tax agriculture when it's the country's main export earner.
Good evening. Yes, this is absolutely mind-boggling. It's been on the agenda for a long time. The idea that we need to tax emissions, all sorts of things, the CO2 and now the methane. So it's been bubbling along since early 2000s, I suppose, 2008 when the emissions trading scheme came in, and there's always been this idea that we need to get agricultural emissions in. But there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to it. It's not even a clever thing to do. There's nothing the farmer can do to avoid the tax other than go broke or shut down production. So, there's nothing really good in it for the country for us to achieve this.
Well, this is the problem, right? There's an additional tax coming. So, as you say, either farmers are just hit with an additional tax, or there's a lot of speculation that there'll be new ways and new techniques, even new feedstocks invented so that cows and sheep will fart and burp less. Do you think there's much future in reducing the emissions from the animals?
Well, they're looking for these things. I mean, it's not going to be very easy for the New Zealand pastoral farming to adopt any technology because most of them are going to be involved feed additives. So that sort of suits feedlot farming. So New Zealand, which is probably one of the most efficient producers of grass-fed milk and meat, could find itself in trouble if it goes down that track, or if the world goes down that track. But at the moment, the issue we have in New Zealand is that there's no need to reduce these emissions as far as the environment's concerned. I mean, we've been studying this for years. There's no controversy now. The methane is cycling. It's atmospherically neutral, so it's not causing any additional warming. So if they want to address the problem of global warming, by doing it through methane and livestock emissions is just the wrong way to go.
Well, this is the point with all these things, right? I mean, methane, 2/3 of all methane that's produced is produced naturally. New Zealand, while your agricultural sector is a huge part of your economy, obviously it's a tiny part of global agriculture. So whatever you reduce in methane emissions in New Zealand is going to be meaningless. But it could do real damage to your dairy farmers in particular, couldn't it?
Well, the dairy industry will cope with it better. That's why they're predicting about a 5% decline in the industry, which is, I mean, it's our biggest industry, $18 billion worth in exports. So, 5%, that's a lot of things that we won't be able to, or New Zealanders won't be able to it'll lower our standard of living. Big impact on sheep and beef farms, more like 20%, and that's sort of a $10 billion industry. So you're talking big drops. And the other thing is that by us dropping our agricultural production to reduce our methane emissions, it's just selfish, because two things there. One's going to happen is that the production is going to get picked up by another country. I mean, good on you, Australia, if you pick it up and you get the money that we don't get. Other parts of the world, they'll produce more feed to take up the slack that we create, and they'll produce higher emissions. So it's actually probably going to cause more global warming than anything. And the other thing, it's in contravention of the Paris Agreement. And you understand the Paris Agreement, they were very conscious of the effect of the biofuel policies from previous climate policies, which caused huge devastation, wiping out food production for fuel.
Robin, tell us then about the anger among farmers and the political situation. Is this a fait accompli now, or do you think that there will be changes from the government?
Well, there will be changes because the government's acknowledged it's not a very good scheme. It's an expedient scheme that they put in place. But whether the changes are sufficient to appease the farmers, I strongly doubt. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not. The anger the farmers have is they're angry with their own industry, the dairy NZs and the beef and lambs, who have let them down by trying to work with the government and then ultimately being shafted by the government, who threw out the compromise scheme for this scheme that they put up. And as far as anger with the government, well, I don't know how much more angry you can get. The government's been anti-farmer from the beginning. Inexplicably, they seem to want to devastate the industry or something like that. And farmers have been, I think they're at the wall and they're about as angry as you can get.
Robin, good luck with your battle and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.